In the peaceful village of Doremi, Kiwale, a poor but kind-hearted fisherman lives a quiet and simple life. The village is surrounded by lush forests, a wide river, and distant mountains, providing the people with everything they need to survive through fishing and farming. Kiwale, a widower, has no children of his own, but is well respected for his wisdom and kindness. He spends his days fishing along the riverbanks, repairing his nets, and helping his fellow villagers whenever they need a hand. The village chief, Mawinda, has been Kiwale's friend for years. He often shares old stories passed down through generations, warning Kiwale about the mysteries of the river. The river holds secrets. Be careful of what it brings, he says whenever Kiwale heads out on his fishing boat. Though Kiwale laughs off such tales, he respects Mawinda's wisdom and has seen enough strange occurrences to know that nature has its own way of keeping balance. One evening, the skies darken unexpectedly and the wind howls through the village. A violent storm sweeps across Doremi, bringing heavy rain and strong winds that shake the huts. The villagers stay indoors, listening to the sound of trees bending under the force of the wind and the river swelling beyond its usual limits. The storm rages through the night, and no one dares to step outside until the first light of dawn. As the sun rises, Kiwale ventures toward the river to inspect the damage. He finds broken branches, uprooted plants, and the water level higher than he has ever seen before. Just as he turns to leave, something catches his eye near the reeds. A figure lies tangled in the tall grass by the riverbank, a girl, unconscious, her clothes soaked and torn. She wears a faded blue dress, and around her neck is a golden necklace that glistens in the morning light. Kiwale hesitates for only a moment before rushing to her side. He gently lifts her from the damp earth, feeling how cold and fragile she is. His heart pounds as he checks for signs of life. Her breathing is faint, but she is alive. Without wasting another second, he carries her back to his hut, unaware that this one moment will change everything he has ever known. Kiwale watches over the girl carefully, ensuring she is warm and well fed as she slowly regains her strength. Her face is delicate, and despite the dirt and dried mud covering her, there is an unmistakable grace about her. The golden necklace around her neck is strange. It is unlike anything Kiwale has ever seen before, with an engraving of a symbol he does not recognize. He wonders if it could hold the key to her past. For the first 2 days, the girl remains unconscious, stirring only to murmur incoherent words in her sleep. Kiwale sits by her side, feeding her small sips of herbal broth when she's able to swallow. On the 3rd day, her eyes flutter open. They are a deep, rich brown, filled with confusion and fear. She struggles to sit up, but her body is too weak. "Rest, child," Kiwale says gently. "You are safe now." The girl blinks, looking around the unfamiliar hut. "Where am I?" she whispers, her voice hoarse and unsteady. "In my home, in the village of Doremi," Kiwale replies. "I found you by the river." Her forehead creases in frustration. "The river," she repeats, trying to recall how she got there. But nothing comes. Her mind is blank, a vast emptiness where her memories should be. She glances down at herself, gripping the necklace around her neck. Who am I?" Kiwale studies her carefully, sensing the fear in her voice. "You don't remember?" She shakes her head, panic rising in her chest. "Nothing. Not my name. Not where I came from." He sighs. "Then we will give you a name until you remember your own." He looks at her closely, then says, "Lidaisi. That will be your name for now." Lidaisi nods slowly, though the name feels unfamiliar. She grips the golden necklace, hoping it will reveal something about her past, but it offers no answers. As the days pass, Lidaisi begins to regain her strength. Kiwale teaches her how to move without pain, bringing her outside when she is strong enough to walk. The village women take an interest in her, offering to teach her how to fetch water from the well and mend fishing nets. Lidaisi learns quickly, her hands delicate yet efficient. She smiles at the children who play near the huts, and soon they begin to follow her around, laughing at the stories she invents. But something about her is different. The villagers begin to notice it, the way she speaks, the way she carries herself. Unlike them, she does not stumble over her words or struggle to count when measuring grain. She knows how to read, though books are rare in the village. She eats with careful manners, never wasting a single bite. And when she walks, there is an effortless grace in her steps. The elders exchange uneasy glances. "She is not one of us," they whisper. "She does not belong here." Some of the villagers begin to fear her, wondering if she was sent by the spirits of the river. Had she drowned and been returned from the other world? Had she angered the gods? Others whisper that she is cursed, that she will bring misfortune upon the village. Kiwale defends her, insisting that she is just a lost girl in need of kindness. But deep in his heart, even he wonders, who is Lidaisi? And why does she seem so different from the rest of them? Lidaisi's nights grow restless as strange dreams invade her sleep. She sees flickering images, flames consuming grand halls, the clashing of swords, and men in shining armor storming through a palace. A woman's voice echoes through the chaos, calling her name in desperation. Each time she reaches out to grasp the memory, it fades, leaving her gasping for breath in the darkness. One night, she jolts awake, her heart pounding. The words escape her lips before she even understands them. "Beware the betrayer." Her hands tremble as she clutches the golden necklace against her chest, its metal warm, as if it carries a life of its own. Kiwale notices the changes in her. She grows quiet, distracted, staring into the distance, as if searching for something just beyond her reach. When he catches her whispering strange words in her sleep, he knows there is more to her than a lost girl from the river. His eyes drift to the golden necklace, a symbol engraved at its center, intricate and unfamiliar. Determined to uncover the truth, he seeks out Mama Amani, the oldest and wisest woman in the village. When he places the necklace in her wrinkled hands, she gasps, her fingers tracing the emblem with wide eyes. A deep silence falls over the room. "Kiwale," she breathes, her voice barely above a whisper. "Where did you find this?" Kiwale hesitates, then tells her about Lidaisi, the girl he rescued, the one with no memory of her past. Mama Amani's eyes darken. "This is no ordinary girl," she says. "She carries the royal crest of Nabudu." The name sends a shiver down Kiwale's spine. He has heard the stories, the legends told by the elders. 10 years ago, the great kingdom of Nabudu fell into ruin. King Marcello, a ruler known for his wisdom and strength, was betrayed by one of his own. His palace burned, his guards slaughtered. In the chaos, his young daughter was said to have drowned in the raging river, never to be seen again. Kiwale's breath catches in his throat. Could Lidaisi be that lost princess? Mama Amani's face is grim. If she is truly the child of King Marcello, then she is in grave danger. The one who destroyed Nabudu would never allow her to live. Kiwale feels the weight of her words settle over him like a heavy storm cloud. If someone in power had ensured the princess's disappearance all those years ago, they would not hesitate to do it again. And now, the lost princess has returned. The quiet of the village is shattered one morning by the arrival of a group of strangers. They are well-dressed men with smooth-talking smiles, claiming to be merchants seeking goods to trade. At first, they seem harmless enough, offering small gifts of cloth and jewelry to the villagers. But something about them feels off. They ask too many questions, questions that seem too specific for mere traders. "What do you know of a girl who came from the river?" one of the strangers asks, his voice casual but with a sharpness hidden beneath. "A girl with a strange necklace." Kiwale is standing nearby, watching the exchange with growing suspicion. He notices the way the man's eyes flicker toward the women of the village. But most notably, they linger on Lidaisi. Her presence is drawing attention again, though she has tried to blend in with the others, Kiwale's instincts scream that these men are no ordinary merchants. He watches them carefully as they continue to ask more questions, prying into the village's daily life. The villagers exchange uncomfortable glances, sensing that something is not right. As the strangers prepare to leave, Kiwale's heart sinks when they say, "We'll be back soon. Perhaps we will meet the girl from the river then." Kiwale waits until nightfall, his mind racing. These men, whoever they are dangerous, and their intentions are far from innocent. He quickly hurries back to his hut, his eyes scanning the darkness for any signs of movement. When he reaches his door, he finds Lidaisi sitting by the fire, looking troubled. She hasn't said much in the past few days, but Kiwale can sense that her mind is still haunted by the visions of her past. "You must stay hidden," he says softly, his voice full of urgency. Lidaisi looks up at him, her confusion still evident in her eyes. "What is happening, Kiwale? Why are you so worried?" "Those men, they're searching for you," he explains, his voice low. "I don't know who they are, but they are dangerous. You need to stay out of sight." Without another word, Kiwale helps her move to a hidden space in the back of the hut, one that he had prepared in case of such a moment. He makes sure she is safe before securing the door and watching from the window, waiting for the inevitable. That night, the air is thick with tension. The usual sounds of the village are absent. No animals, no crickets chirping, only silence. Then, a slight rustling at the edge of the hut breaks the stillness. Kiwale's heart pounds in his chest as he moves silently to the door. Before he can react, a masked figure slips into the room. The assassin moves like a shadow, his steps quick and precise as he approaches Lidaisi's hiding spot. Kiwale's breath catches in his throat. With a surge of adrenaline, Kiwale springs into action, throwing himself at the intruder. The two struggle violently in the dim light, each fighting for control. Kiwale's hands land on the assassin's throat, but the man is quick and nimble, twisting out of his grasp. The assassin pulls a knife, its cold steel glinting in the dim firelight. But Kiwale is stronger. He manages to disarm the attacker, throwing him to the ground with a force that knocks the wind out of him. The assassin groans but quickly pushes himself to his feet. Before Kiwale can react, the assassin hisses, "She should have died in the river." The words are full of venom, spoken through clenched teeth. Then, without another word, the man vanishes into the darkness, leaving only the faintest echo of his footsteps behind. Kiwale stands frozen for a moment, trying to process what just happened. The words the assassin muttered linger in his mind, like an ominous warning. Whoever wants Lidaisi dead, whoever has been hunting her for years, will stop at nothing to erase her from this world. His breath is ragged as he moves quickly to check on Lidaisi. She is trembling, her eyes wide with terror. "What did he mean?" she whispers. "What did he say about the river?" Kiwale meets her gaze, his heart heavy. He knows now with certainty what he had only feared before. Lidaisi is the lost princess of Nabudu. She is the one who should have died all those years ago. And someone powerful, is determined to make sure that she does. Kiwale and Lidaisi stand at the edge of the village, the path ahead dark and uncertain. Kiwale's heart beats with a mix of fear and determination. The village elder, Mama Amani, had advised them to seek the hidden rebels, those who remained loyal to the royal family of Nabudu. These rebels were scattered throughout the forests and mountains, waiting for the day when the rightful heir would return to claim the throne. But how could a simple fisherman like Kiwale guide this lost princess to her destiny? He wasn't a warrior, and the forest was filled with dangers beyond his comprehension. Still, the resolve in his chest burned bright. He couldn't turn his back on her now, not after everything they had been through together. "I will protect you, Lidaisi," Kiwale said, his voice firm despite the fear that threatened to choke him. "I may not be a prince or a soldier, but I know how to survive. And I will get you to the rebels." Lidaisi, though still struggling with the confusion about her identity, nodded. There was an unspoken trust between them. She had seen the tenderness in his eyes, the way he had cared for her when no one else would, and she knew he would not let anything harm her. They set off into the dense forest, the towering trees creating a canopy that blocked out much of the sunlight. The air was thick with humidity, and every rustle in the underbrush seemed to hold an unseen danger. Kiwale carried a spear he had fashioned himself, and Lidaisi, though reluctant, carried a small dagger she had found in Kiwale's hut. The journey was long, and with each passing day, they ventured further into the wilds. Their food supplies were running low, and Kiwale did his best to hunt and gather, while Lidaisi tried to learn what she could from him. Though she still didn't understand her past, she was beginning to remember flashes, glimpses of battlefields, the glint of a royal crown, the sounds of a mighty throne room. One afternoon, while traveling through a particularly dense patch of trees, they were ambushed. A group of bandits, ragged and wild-eyed, emerged from the shadows, surrounding them with cruel grins. "This is our forest now, old man," one of the bandits sneered, eyeing Kiwale's spear. "Give us your food, and we might let you live." Kiwale stepped in front of Lidaisi, trying to appear as strong as possible. "We have nothing for you," he said, his voice steady. The bandits laughed. "Nothing? You must think we're fools. Hand it over, or your girl will regret it." Lidaisi tensed, her fingers tightening around the dagger in her hand. She had no idea where the strength came from, but the moment the bandit lunged toward Kiwale, something inside her snapped. She moved faster than Kiwale had ever seen, grabbing the bandit's wrist and twisting it with a precision and skill that seemed almost unnatural. The man cried out in pain as she disarmed him, sending the blade skittering across the forest floor. Kiwale watched in awe as Lidaisi dispatched the other bandits with ease, her movements fluid and calculated. She didn't remember how she knew these skills, but her body seemed to remember what her mind had forgotten. When the last bandit fled, Kiwale's heart raced in disbelief. "Lidaisi," he whispered, his voice full of awe. "Where did you learn to fight like that?" She looked at him, wide-eyed. "I don't know. I've never done that before, but it felt right." Kiwale could only shake his head, stunned by the girl who was not just a simple village girl, but someone far more powerful than he could have ever imagined. They continued on their journey, crossing into the rebel territory as the days passed. The further they traveled, the more the landscape changed, becoming harsher and wilder. But it was in these rugged lands that they finally found the rebels, the group that had kept the flame of hope alive for years. When they arrived at the rebels' camp, they were greeted by a tall, imposing figure who stood with authority and confidence. Commander Remiso, the leader of the rebel forces, stepped forward, his eyes scanning Kiwale and Lidaisi with curiosity. But when he caught sight of Lidaisi, his eyes widened and he fell to his knees. "Your Highness," he murmured, his voice full of reverence. "It is truly you." Lidaisi blinked in confusion, stepping back. "What are you talking about?" Remiso rose to his feet, bowing deeply. "You are the lost princess of Nabudu, the daughter of King Marcello." The words hit Lidaisi like a bolt of lightning. Her breath caught in her throat, and for a moment, she couldn't speak. She had known something was different about her, something she couldn't understand. But this was more than she had ever imagined. The rebels gathered around, and Remiso explained the truth. King Marcello, Lidaisi's father, had been betrayed by his own brother, Kundo, who had taken the throne in a bloody coup. Kundo had sought to wipe out the royal family completely, and when Lidaisi, the young princess, had disappeared during the fall of the kingdom, it was believed she had drowned in the river. But now, after years of waiting, the rebels knew that Lidaisi was alive. She was the true heir to the throne, and the only one who could take back Nabudu from the tyrant Kundo. Kiwale looked at Lidaisi, a mixture of pride and concern on his face. The journey had only just begun, and the dangers ahead would be greater than anything they had faced so far. But now, there was no turning back. Lidaisi was no longer the girl who had washed up on the riverbank. She was the princess who would reclaim her throne. And Kiwale would stand by her side, no matter the cost. As dawn broke over the capital, the sound of battle filled the air. The rebels, led by Commander Remiso, had launched a full-scale assault on the heavily fortified palace. The clash of swords and the screams of warriors echoed through the streets as the city trembled under the weight of the final battle for Nabudu's throne. Kiwale and Lidaisi stood in the shadows of the palace walls, their hearts racing. The weight of the moment was nearly unbearable. Lidaisi, the girl who had once been lost in the river, now stood at the gates of her birthright. Her hands trembled as she gripped the hilt of her dagger, but there was no hesitation in her eyes. She had come too far to turn back now. "I will not fail," she whispered to herself, before glancing at Kiwale, who gave her a reassuring nod. They made their way through the secret passages of the palace, avoiding the chaos outside. The palace, once grand and filled with beauty, now felt like a tomb. Its marble floors cracked, and the once pristine tapestries now torn and stained. Kiwale knew the risks. They had to reach King Kundo before the rebels could break through the palace gates. As they approached the royal chambers, they heard voices inside, heated, frantic. Lidaisi's pulse quickened as she pushed open the heavy door. To her shock, King Kundo sat at the throne, his face twisted into a cruel grin. His eyes widened when he saw her enter. "Lidaisi," Kundo sneered, standing up. "I thought you were dead. How fitting it is that you've come to your own funeral." For a moment, Kiwale thought Lidaisi might collapse, but she stood tall, her shoulders squared with defiance. "I am the true queen of Nabudu, not you," she declared, her voice clear and strong. "And you will not keep my throne." Kundo's eyes darkened, and he stepped forward, clenching his fists. But before he could strike, another voice echoed through the chamber. "A child does not deserve the throne. The kingdom is better under my rule." Lidaisi's blood ran cold. She turned toward the voice, her heart sinking in disbelief. There, standing in the shadows of the throne room, was Queen Mother Wanjala, her aunt, the very woman who had raised her, who had shown her affection and love. But now, Wanjala's face was twisted with greed and ambition. She stepped forward, her regal robes swishing as she approached the throne, her eyes meeting Lidaisi's. "You were always too weak to rule, Lidaisi," Wanjala continued, her voice cold and venomous. "Kundo may have betrayed your father, but I knew how to seize power. The kingdom is mine now, and it will remain under my control. A child like you does not belong on the throne." Lidaisi's heart shattered as the realization sank in. Her own flesh and blood had been a traitor. Queen Mother Wanjala had helped Kundo orchestrate the fall of Nabudu's royal family, betraying her sister, the late queen, and her entire kingdom. The truth felt like a weight pressing down on Lidaisi's chest. But in that moment, she felt the fire of her ancestors rise within her. This was her kingdom, and no one, not even her own family, could take it from her. With a guttural cry, Lidaisi charged at Kundo, her dagger flashing through the air. Kiwale, ever loyal, joined her, using his spear to fend off the guards who rushed in to protect the treacherous king and queen. The battle was fierce. Kundo fought with the rage of a man who had lost everything, but Lidaisi was faster, more determined. She struck with precision, her movements honed by her time in the wild, her body instinctively knowing how to fight. She had been trained for this moment, even if her memories had not yet fully returned. But then, in a twist that surprised even Kiwale, Queen Wanjala herself stepped into the fray, drawing a gleaming sword from beneath her robes. She fought with an elegance that betrayed the ruthlessness in her heart. "You are nothing but a puppet, Lidaisi," Wanjala hissed, lunging at her niece with deadly intent. "A pawn in a game I've already won." But Lidaisi's resolve was unwavering. With a swift motion, she blocked her aunt's strike, knocking the sword from her hands. Then, with all the strength she had left, she drove her dagger into the queen's heart, ending the treachery that had stained her family and her kingdom. Kundo, witnessing his betrayal undone, fell to his knees in disbelief. "No," "This cannot be," he muttered, his voice cracking as he reached for the crown that had once been his. But it was too late. With a final cry, Lidaisi lunged at him, her dagger finding its mark. The king who had taken her kingdom from her father crumpled at her feet, his rule ending in the blood of his own treachery. The palace guards, seeing the true heir standing before them, her dagger dripping with the blood of the traitors, dropped their weapons in surrender. The kingdom of Nabudu, once divided and broken, was now united once again under its rightful ruler. The rebels, who had fought valiantly outside the palace, cheered as they learned of Lidaisi's victory. The kingdom had been reclaimed, and Lidaisi had fulfilled her destiny. Kiwale stood by her side, his heart swelling with pride. He had always known there was something extraordinary about her, but now he saw her for who she truly was, a queen, a warrior, and the heart of Nabudu. Together, they had overcome the impossible, and as Lidaisi stood on the steps of the palace, raising her hand to the sky, the people of Nabudu hailed their true queen. And so, the kingdom was reborn. With the final battle behind them, the sun broke through the dark clouds that had hung over Nabudu for years. The kingdom, once ruled by a tyrant, now stood in the hands of its rightful heir. Lidaisi stood tall in the grand palace, the heavy crown settling on her brow. The gold and jewels that adorned her hair and dress reflected the triumph of justice and the blood of betrayal. The people of Nabudu cheered, their voices rising in a harmonious chorus of joy. The long-awaited peace had finally arrived, and the heart of the kingdom had been restored. The streets filled with flowers, music, and the scent of fresh bread as the villagers celebrated the return of their queen. But as Lidaisi stood at the balcony of the palace, her eyes scanned the crowd. Not just the jubilant faces of her people, but the quiet, unwavering figure standing at the edge of the crowd. Kiwale, the fisherman who had saved her life, who had risked everything for her, stood with a humble smile on his weathered face. His simple clothes seemed out of place amidst the grandeur of the palace, yet he radiated a warmth and strength that no crown could rival. After the ceremony, as the celebrations raged on, Lidaisi found herself walking toward him. She was no longer the girl who had emerged from the river, lost and alone. She was the queen of Nabudu, but the man who had been there for her, who had guided her through the darkest moments of her life, was a reminder of the person she had always been. Kiwale stood by the riverbank, the same place where their journey had begun. His hands rested on the weathered wood of his boat, as if he were preparing to return to the life he had always known. "I can't thank you enough, Kiwale," Lidaisi said, her voice thick with emotion. She stepped forward, the weight of her crown momentarily forgotten. "This kingdom is mine, but it's only because of you. You saved me, not just from the river, but from the person I might have become." Kiwale smiled, a humble and quiet smile, as he shook his head. "The kingdom was always yours, Lidaisi. You were meant for greatness, but it was you who fought for it. I was just a fisherman. It is I who should be thanking you." Lidaisi reached into her pouch and pulled out a small pouch of gold coins, along with a parchment that would grant him lands by the river. She held it out to him. "Take this," she said softly. "You deserve it. Land, gold, anything you want." Kiwale's eyes softened, and he gently pushed the offer back toward her. "I don't need gold, Your Highness. My home is the river. I was never meant for the palace." Her heart clenched. This man, who had lost so much, who had given so much, was leaving her. He had been the father she never had, the protector, the one who had nurtured her when no one else would. Lidaisi knelt before him, her crown brushing against the ground as she looked up at him, with a mixture of gratitude and sadness. "You are the father I never had, Kiwale. You gave me the love and wisdom I needed to become who I am today." Kiwale's eyes shimmered with emotion, but he remained silent. He didn't need words. His heart spoke through his actions, through the way he had cared for her, through the way he had always believed in her when no one else did. As the sun set on the horizon, casting an orange glow across the river, Kiwale turned and walked toward his boat. Lidaisi stood in silence, watching him go. She knew this was the last time she would see him like this. Her protector, her guide, the man who had shaped her life and made her who she was. As Kiwale sailed down the river, the royal banners fluttered in the wind, a symbol of the new kingdom, the one that had risen from the ashes of betrayal and loss. And in his heart, Kiwale knew that, in his own small way, he had played a part in changing history forever.